The court approved it on a Thursday morning. I remember that detail because Thursdays used to be ordinary. Nothing significant ever happened on Thursdays until that one did. If this story is touching you, comment below where you're watching from and what time it is there. The decision wasn't read dramatically. There was no pause. No warning in the judge's voice. Just a sentence delivered the same way someone might approve a zoning permit or extend a filing deadline. Approved. That word followed me home. It still does. At first, I told myself I would recover. Everyone does that. We believe recovery is automatic, like breathing, that time heals by default. I had no idea that some decisions don't injure you. They rewire you. Before the court, my life was fragile, but intact. I wasn't thriving, but I was functioning. I had routines. I had rules. I knew who I was to the people around me. After the court, that certainty vanished. Not all at once, gradually. The situation that brought me there didn't begin as a crisis. It began as a solution, a recommendation, something that was supposed to help. People forget that most legal disasters start with good intentions. I trusted professionals. That's important to say. I trusted experts because I believed expertise meant protection. When they said something was necessary, I listened. When they said it was temporary, I believed them. When they said the court would approve it, I assumed approval meant safety. The hearings were procedural. Cold, but not cruel. No one raised their voice. No one attacked my character. In fact, everyone was polite. That politeness made it worse. They spoke about impact as if it were theoretical, as if it would affect someone else. Future me, a version of me I hadn't met yet. When I tried to explain my concerns, they nodded, they wrote notes, they thanked me for sharing. And then they moved on. That's when I started to understand something fundamental. Listening is not the same as caring, and documentation is not the same as understanding. The approval came with conditions, safeguards, monitoring, language designed to reassure. On paper, it looked responsible, even compassionate. The court didn't say this would destroy me. It said this was reasonable, necessary, proportionate. Those words don't carry emotion, they carry authority. The first weeks after the decision felt unreal. I waited for clarity to arrive, for the sense that this was working. Instead, I felt disoriented, as if my internal compass had been quietly removed. Things I used to do effortlessly became difficult. Sleep fragmented, concentration evaporated. I replayed conversations obsessively, trying to find the moment where I should have spoken differently. People around me assumed I was adjusting. They mistook silence for resilience. I didn't correct them because explaining felt exhausting. The consequences weren't loud, they were structural. Access changed. Autonomy shrank. Decisions were made elsewhere, about things that used to be mine. Every change was justified. Each one made sense in isolation. That's how systems dismantle people, incrementally, logically. I told myself it was temporary, that recovery was just delayed. But recovery requires a return point, something to go back to. That point was gone. The court's approval had transformed my life into a controlled environment. I wasn't imprisoned. I wasn't punished. I was managed. And management is invisible to outsiders. They see compliance, not erosion. I tried therapy. That's what you're supposed to do. The therapist asked how I felt about the decision. I laughed, then cried, then apologized for crying. That cycle repeated for months. There was no language for what I was experiencing. It wasn't grief. No one had died. It wasn't anger. I wasn't wronged in a traditional sense. It was something quieter, a collapse without impact. The system never checked back in emotionally. It checked compliance. Deadlines met. Conditions followed. I was an excellent subject. That excellence went unnoticed. At night, I dreamed of courtrooms, not dramatic ones, just endless hallways, doors that required permission to open. I became hyper-aware of authority. Any letter with a seal triggered panic. Any official tone made my hands shake. I learned later that this was trauma. At the time, I thought it was weakness. Friends encouraged me to move on. They didn't understand that nothing had ended. It had stabilized. And stabilization can be permanent. I asked my lawyer once if there was a way back. He hesitated. That hesitation told me everything. The law doesn't undo itself easily. Once something is approved, it becomes precedent. For you, months passed, then years. The external situation normalized. Internally, I deteriorated. I lost confidence in my judgment because it had been overridden. Repeatedly, I stopped trusting my instincts. That was the most damaging consequence. When a court tells you in black and white that your perspective carries less weight, you start to believe it. And not just in the courtroom. That belief follows you everywhere. I found myself avoiding decisions, big or small. I was always deferring to someone else, waiting for a permission slip that was never going to come. I don't think the court ever intended for this to happen. I truly believe that. But good intentions don't always prevent harm. Eventually, the case ended, on paper at least. The files were closed, the supervision was reduced. But by then, the damage wasn't just a part of my past. It was integrated into who I was. People expected closure to mean healing. They were wrong. Closure just means the paperwork is done. I wasn't the same person who first walked into that courtroom. That version of me is just a memory now. Sometimes I wonder who I would be if the court hadn't approved the measure. Not necessarily happier, but maybe intact. The decision wasn't malicious. It wasn't even careless. And that's what's so terrifying. It means this could happen to anyone. I don't hate the legal system. I just fear its certainty, because that certainty leaves no room for human recovery. So when I hear people say the system worked, I just stay silent. Because for someone like me, it worked a little too well. The court approved it, and a part of me never came back. Thanks for listening. If you think stories like this should be told, you can support the channel by liking this video. If you want to keep watching, subscribe to the channel. A new episode every day. Cool doesn't always mean fair.